I always ask people why they're writing the book because there's no right or wrong reason, but the goal of why you're doing it really kind of determines how you go about it and what effort you put into it. Maybe there is a reason why you want to be a New York Times bestseller, and there's nothing wrong with that. But is your book intended to be a legacy book? Is it just for friends and family? In that case, then a couple of people benefiting from your story is probably enough. But maybe you want to build a platform. Maybe you want to be a speaker or a coach or start a business. And so you do need to have some metrics, right? So you do have to get people to read it. So it is that fine line.
Welcome, everybody. I am very excited today to have a true professional and leader in what we're going to be talking about today, Michelle Prince. She's going to be talking to us about the power of authority, how to leverage your story in business. And maybe to word it a different way is answering that question is, have you written your book yet? Are you ready to do it? Why haven't you if you haven't? And how important that can be to your business. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Wade.
My pleasure. Michelle is a best-selling author, motivational speaker, publishing expert, leadership and productivity coach, and CEO and founder of Performance Publishing Group. They're a partner publishing company dedicated to making a difference one story at a time. She dedicates herself to helping leaders impact the world using the strengths and talents already within them to create an extraordinary life, exponentially grow their business, and enjoy living on purpose with lifestyle freedom, especially by sharing their story and becoming the go-to authority. So that's right in line with what we do. Maybe if you just start out, Michelle, tell us a little bit about your story, how you got started, uh, and how it relates to all this.
Yeah, you bet. So my story kind of starts back a long, long time ago when I was just out of college. I worked for Zig Ziglar, and that was just a huge made a huge impact on me. And so I knew I always wanted to make a difference. I wanted to motivate, inspire, encourage people. I was 20 years old, 21 when I worked there, but in my path took a little bit of a different turn. I left Ziglar to go into software sales, and so that was my career for the next 13 years. But there was something that I always wanted to do, and I always kept coming back to it, but just internally. I never told anyone. I always wanted to write a book. And for many, many years, I thought, well, I have nothing to say. Who cares about my book? Who cares? What would I possibly put into a book that anyone would care to read? And but it persisted. So in 2009, I wrote my first book called Winning in Life Now: How to Break Through to a Happier You. And it was really just my story. And the intention behind it was, my kids who were at the time in elementary school, I just wanted them to know my story. And so I did it. It was a goal. I checked it off, but I really didn't tell anyone still after I published a book. And Zig, by the way, wrote the foreword. Make a long story short, it was in not long after that, I decided, somebody kind of challenged me and said, if you want to make a difference, you got to share your story. And so I did. And that's really was the beginning of my business, which now I do full time, of speaking and coaching and doing seminars. But none of that would have happened had I not shared my story in a book. That book is what literally opened up all of these opportunities and doors for me. That's why I'm passionate about helping people to tell their story in a book.
That's awesome. So, a lot of people are very nervous about writing a book. They have this sense of why would I do it? And my reasons for one of the books that I wrote was very similar to yours. I just wanted to leave it as a legacy to the kids. Uh, and wasn't, again, as concerned with promoting it. It was almost like, gosh, it's just enough just to even write a book because it's not easy.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet at the same time, it's one of those things that I guess it's like if you've spent a lot of good quality time with your kids, you don't have those regrets like, gosh, I wish I'd have spent time with them. I
Mm-hmm.
really feel like it's a big deal. And sometimes I give it away, sometimes people buy it, but it's something that's huge for me. And then it also has an impact on how other people perceive what I do. How would you say that shifted how people saw you and what you did? Just the idea of, yes, you put together a book, because so many people minimize it. I guess like people on the inside like us will say, well, oh, well, you can do it through Amazon. You can just do a Word document. It's so easy. And then so they dismiss it as if there is no power to it. And from what I'm hearing you say is even in 2021, there's still a lot of power to it.
There totally is. I mean, we value books, actually. I mean, if you think about it, I say this all the time. People will throw away a business card, but they won't throw away a book. So it does have that. We still value content. If we didn't, Google wouldn't exist. I mean, we value content. So when you take what you already know and you put it in a book, there is this just instantly perceived credibility. I'm not saying it's always deserved, and there are a couple times when you think this person should not have written this book. But when done right, it really is instant, long before somebody reads the book. So it's not so much about what the book is about; it's about the fact that you are a published author, because really anyone can do it. It's not rocket science, but so few actually, push through and get it done, because it does take time. It's time investment, financial investment. There's a lot to it, but that credibility is there. Just I think the moment you become an author, and I joke, but I say to folks that I was the exact same person the day before I wrote my book, and the exact same person the day after. But all of a sudden, I was worthy to be paid to speak, paid to coach, paid to do things. And yet I was sharing that same information to my friends, family. So there's just a shift that happens when you have published author status.
It's something, and then everything, I agree completely with everything you just said there, because it's something that, well, definitely it does take, I think, a certain amount of perseverance to say, yes, I'm going to do this. So in some ways it's a filter, a person that, completes things versus somebody that doesn't complete things. But you're helping me even see it almost as like a degree, like, look,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it doesn't say like PhD or whatever, like, published author or whatever, but there are a lot of people that realize, like, yeah, you took the time, because there's also a lot of, I imagine this happened with you, a lot of self-doubt, editing like crazy, because it's one thing to turn in, this is not like turning in something for a high school paper or something. The closest thing, I've never done a thesis, but I could imagine for a doctoral student, your thesis, because I think, unless I'm mistaken, it gets more circulated. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people looking at it. It's not just, oh, I did this homework or this essay for this test. It's a big deal, because a lot of the times there is a lot of us wrapped up in it.
Mm-hmm.
Usually either our story or our expertise is in there. And so it can be a little scary. What are people usually most scared about, or what was scary about it for you? And how did your perception of that shift after you had written it? And how does that, as you've written more books, because you've written more than one book,
Mm-hmm.
has that process changed for you? Are you still nervous when you write a book, when you release it? What's that like?
I'm laughing because I think no matter how many books you write, you still, I mean, there's something within all of us that we think like, oh gosh, I'm really putting myself out there, or, am I sharing too much of my story, or maybe I'm not sharing enough. And I'm really passionate about helping people to see that the more you share your story, the more people connect to you. But even now, I'm literally, before we jumped on this, Wade, I was literally working on a manuscript that I've been working on for a long time. It's done, it's edited, and I've reread it and reread it and reread it, because you still have this, even after writing many books, I still have that, I just want to make sure it's just right. But to answer your question, why do people, I think a lot of times we dismiss who we are and what we know, and we just take it for granted. Well, doesn't everybody know how to do that? Or why would anybody really care? But that's what I found is what was shocking to me is, again, same stories I was sharing with my girlfriends, but all of a sudden it just started to people started to really resonate with them. And it was just eye opening to me that the things that, like, oh, I just thought everyone knew how to do that, they don't, or maybe they need to be reminded of it, or maybe somebody else has said it, but maybe it's you that they're actually going to listen to. So I just, but so many times we put it on the back burner. It could be procrastination, fear, but a lot of times it's just that head junk.
Yeah,
Getting
and
past that.
there's something you said there that, somebody's already written it, and I think of a difference between, let's say, 20, 30 years ago and today, just in the marketplace. So I grew up listening, gosh, I think it was 1995 when I first listened to my first 18 cassette audio of Zig Ziglar, and just over and over in the car. And back then, I mean, you could name the top players: Zig Ziglar, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra. Like, there was 10 to 20, 30, Brian Tracy. Like, there's a certain number of them, and that was it. Like, there was a
Mm-hmm.
big drop off or a big difference. Like, it was A players, and the next group was almost like F or G or A. Like, there was no A, B, C, D.
You're right.
And yet today, there's so many levels in between. There's so many people I've met who are in my exact space,
Mm-hmm.
making seven figures, that I've never heard of until I meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're legitimate. And what I think a lot of people forget too is there's almost nothing brand new. Zig never claimed to say, I made this stuff up. None of them
Mm-mm.
ever said that. Said, look, I've researched this. This is important to me. In fact, it's so important, I am going to do the research as opposed to just making something
Mhm.
up or inventing something. And yet, to your point, people will hear things different ways. I think of the story about Joe Montana, the famous football player who's won 4 Super Bowls, and his son telling him that the high school football coach said, "This is how you throw a football." And Joe's a quarterback, and I can only imagine the coach saying, "Like, dude, no, you don't. You listen to your dad on that one." But the son wasn't apparently willing to hear it
Mhm.
from his father, Hall of Fame football player. And so I think when people, for whatever reasons, because there's cultural similarities, there might be, well, they just feel more like me. They're my age, they're my gender, they're my
Mhm.
situation, they're my industry. And I think you and I have both seen enough people that have a similar message. And yet, so then as the author, it's almost like, oh, well, it's already been done. It's almost like being nice to your wife or your kids has already been done. So I'm gonna do something. No, that's actually still a good thing. That still works. What would you tell that person who, if you ask them, they say, yes, I help people. I know what I do is fundamentally sound. I've done it. So I've got
Mhm.
that true sense of, yes, I do have legitimate authority. I'm not faking it till I make it. I really
Right.
do have something to offer. How do you help that person perhaps understand, or what should they do? Because if they're saying, okay, but realistically, Michelle, I do need to differentiate my book. I can't just
Mhm.
say,
It's true.
this is the 7 habits of highly effective other people or something like that. It's got to
Yeah.
be something that's unique. How can somebody differentiate themselves in a meaningful way? And maybe a second part to that, and do they need to be a Zig Ziglar? Do they need to be
Mm.
sell 5 million copies to make an impact?
I love this question because honestly, when I was thinking of writing my book before I did it, that was something that I had a limiting belief on. And I remember thinking to myself, who do you think you are? You're no Zig Ziglar. And that would stop me. But then I don't know if somebody said it to me or if it was just kind of a revelation. I thought, you know what though? I may be saying the same thing because everything I know I learned from him. So and from other great leaders. So I don't take credit for any of that. And but I thought, you know what? Maybe there's somebody who's going to more relate to me. Maybe they wouldn't pick up his book. At the time he was in his 70s, and I thought, and I was a working mom. I had 2 young kids in elementary school, and I thought, you know what? Maybe there's another lady out there who will just relate to my story more. And it gave me that courage to do it. So what I tell people, whether they're working with us through the publishing or if they've come to a seminar, we help people figure out what their story is. And I say, look, there's nothing new under the sun, right? There's leadership, there's goal setting, there's personal development, and everything is a result of something that you have experienced and something that you're passionate about. It's not that it's new, but it is your take on it. And it's your experiences and it's all the things that have happened to you in your life that you've learned that make your story unique. I mean, at the end of the day, everything in all of my books boils down to finding out what your greatest gifts and talents and purpose is, right? And then sharing it with others to make a difference. I'm not saying anything new there, but I share my stories and how I got to that place. And I think that's what is so important. And honestly, Wade, now more than ever, we have a greater opportunity. Like you said, all of those greats were huge, but it was really hard for anyone else to get in there unless they were willing to do what they were doing. Now we have the ability with social platforms to put yourself out there, right? To do a podcast, to do a webinar, write a book. And I just think that the more we do that, the more people you help. And I will say this, and you kind of alluded to this, you will never regret writing a book. Ever. I've yet to meet one single person who has said, "Oh, I really regret doing that." Maybe they didn't love the way it turned out. Maybe there were some things they wanted to change, but they never regretted doing it. And something I heard Zig say once, or maybe a few times. It's not necessarily about writing a book. It's who you become in the process of writing a book. Because you really do. And that's what happened to me. It's not really, my book isn't anything spectacular. It's just my story. But at the end of the day, it created something in me that wanted me to share even more. And I kept writing. And I have also one last thing on that. I've also found that once you write one book, you tend to want to write more because you realize you have a lot more to say.
Yeah, wow. There's so much in there, and you alluded to something that this idea of who I learned a lot from. So I've learned Dan Sullivan, the strategic coach, Wayne
Mm-hmm.
Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Debbie Ford, there's so many people, Stephen Covey before that, Zig Ziglar, there's so many people I've learned so much from. And initially, I almost felt embarrassed because I'd hear some of these speakers. And I remember because I was in the corporate side world, these speakers would come in and and I knew a little bit about what they were getting paid. And I'm like, these people are speaking in generalities. And I was in the insurance field. I'm like, but they're not telling them how to sell insurance. And yet they keep getting paid pretty well because of course, they would tie into these universal things that would get people to take action. But I remember when I would hear somebody, they would say, well, I learned this from this, let's say 8 to 10 people in a 1 hour speech. And part of me was confused because growing up in a traditional education system, it's like, well, no, but weren't they supposed to create this themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, of course, there was the flip side, which was, okay, no, but they wouldn't want to, that would be completely wrong if they learned something from somebody and
And not
didn't
give
give
them
them
credit.
credit. And so it was like, okay, this is weird. And then even then, especially now, and this was something that was almost a little, sometimes you get knocked with something that's almost not painful, but a little like, oh, wow, I missed that opportunity. I've since heard people come out and they're like, yeah, I learned so much from Wayne Dyer and this, that. And that was some of my story of like, well, no, I'm not going to write a book too much in that area because then I'll have to admit that so much of it came from his inspiration or this person's, that then people are going to say, well, dude, are you just copying his book? And I don't know about you. I've come more to look, at least for me, if 1,000 people said, I learned this from Wade and it's in my book, and I'm only now realizing this as we're talking, I'd be
Mm-hmm.
so flattered. I wouldn't be like, why are you stealing my stuff?
Right.
I guess that's part of what you went through with Zig. Because again, like you
Yeah.
said, you learned so much from him.
Yes. I definitely felt that in the beginning. And in fact, I was very hesitant to, because I didn't want it to come across that I was, trying to do anything that wouldn't be right. And, Zig is deceased now. And I love the way the family has approached this, that it's all about keeping his legacy alive. So every time I share my story that I was inspired and influenced at a very, very young age by Zig and all the things that I've learned, I'm teaching, and I learned it from him, that's keeping his legacy alive. And I think he would say, not everything was original from him either. He'll tell you most of his stuff came straight from the Bible. So, we're all just, again, no new thing under the sun, but it is our experience and our take on it that I think is what makes it unique. And yeah, but I understand what you were feeling there.
Yeah. And I think that's so huge, that whole concept of leaders create more leaders. I think of Debbie Ford. I read a lot of her work and did her coaching work, and she passed about 4 or 5 years ago. And there's, the group of people that was really following her work and leading with her and giving workshops. They still do the workshops in the name of the Ford
Mm,
Institute. And again, you think, wow, how cool. And as
yeah.
somebody who got the opportunity to serve with her, and it wasn't under her because that wasn't her energy, but to serve with her and the people that were in the workshop and realize, wow, that's being carried on. Again, just something that shifted. So, if I just think if people are looking to think that they have to be so unique, again, I think that's
Mhm.
something that's maybe off. So one of the things you and I also talked about was in the pre-interview is the idea that people do want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. It's
Mhm.
people have heard that, and that the story is one of the ways to do that. And if you look back, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, in the late 80s, early 90s, everything was, you've got to be perfect. If you want to sell
Mhm.
anything, you've got to project that you're perfect.
Mhm.
And said with a little bit of a smile and a little bit of sarcasm, when we look at what's on social media and some of the people that get
Yeah.
followings, they're certainly often sharing, and I'm making light of it, but they're often sharing their vulnerability. And
Mhm.
that seems to be what people connect with. Can you share more about that? So for that person who's saying, no, but you don't understand, Wade, I've got to get every one of my ducks in a row
Mhm.
and then I'll be ready. And maybe that's when I'm, 70 or 80.
Yep. Oh gosh, everybody says that. And, or many people say that, like, well, who am I? I'm not at the pinnacle of my career yet, or I haven't made it yet. And I said, well, that's exactly the reason why you need to tell your story now, because I don't know about you. I can't relate to anybody who's perfect. And, when somebody says, look, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm working on it. Here's what I've learned so far. Come along this journey with me. I'm much more, I just connect with them more, because again, I can't relate to perfect. This was this was even before I wrote my book. I was at a conference probably about 13, 14 years ago. And Dennis Waitley was there, and he was telling a story about his first book, and the name of it is escaping me, but it was something about success, and I can't remember the title. But him saying that when he wrote that book, he was in a very different place. I think he, was broke, and he was, I don't remember all the specifics, but it was basically like he was whatever he was writing about. It was because he was going through a hard time, and he did a bunch of research, and he read a lot of books, and he was thinking, this stuff is good. I need to share this with my friends to help them too. And then that just kind of came out of that. So you don't have to have it all figured out. And I think, and I also tell people, look, just because you wrote a book doesn't mean that you are any better than anyone else. You are just one step ahead of someone else who might be going through the same thing behind you, whether it be building a business, whether it be something personal. So if you look at it that way, when we share our story, it's just like you would a friend turning around saying, hey, there's a pothole here. Don't go over it. That's kind of what our story is. And I just personally, I do think we need to be professional, and I do think we need to always give our best, but we're just kidding ourselves if we stand there and say we have it all figured out. Because I'll tell you right now, I know I don't. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I think that's something. I remember one of the distinctions I know Brennan Burchard would make was the difference between being, let's say, a results expert or a research expert. And there's probably different ways to word that, but the idea that, yeah, you don't have to be the person. I forget which book it is. Well, shoot, Napoleon Hill. A lot of it was interviewing successful people.
Yeah.
And getting feedback and sharing that. And I think this is the clear distinction, and being clear that, no, I'm not pretending to be these people. So it's not a fake it till you make it strategy, which some people, I think, is good, that they have a hard time with that, to say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be honest about it. And yet to still at least be, okay, I'm the person that's studying this stuff. And eventually when I get there, of course, maybe I'll have a little bit more authority. One of the other things that has been said before, and gosh, this was said years ago, and then it's almost kind of gone out of style. And I think because it's gotten easier, at least technologically, to publish a book. So I remember when I first wrote the first book I did, it was a little over 20 years ago. And I remember hearing Wayne Dyer tell that story about how he would go, drive from interview to interview. So no podcast, no video, literally drive from interview to interview. And I love the story he told, where he would say, he would do the research of what the local bookstore was. He'd have the books in his trunk, and he would tell on the interview on the radio, would say, oh, they've got the books at blah, blah, blah bookstore. And then the people would go to the bookstore and the books weren't there. And then he'd show up in his car and be like, I heard you might need some books. I got some books, which I just thought was so gangster, like just so
That's
unbelievably
funny.
And yet I was like, okay, my first book was about having more free time. I'm like, well, okay, I can't go travel. I could, but I'm like, I'm not going to go travel the world and do this whole like type A, which he was willing to do. And I at that stage wasn't, to do this. And then eventually even, I think book pricing finally became, at that time, it was maybe like $25,000 to print out like a few thousand books. And then eventually, maybe 6-7 years later, it got down, some of the print on demand, technology got to where I think it was like $3,000 for 2,000 books or something, like just like way more like, okay, like I can put those in my garage. Like, yes, I can afford to do that. But I think since the print on demand, it's almost like even some of the old school people that have done a book the old way, where they're like, yes, I do have boxes in my garage or whatever, almost have created this almost like, well, no, if you didn't do that, well, then you're not a real author. Or if if it's just print on demand, it's not a real book because anybody can do that. And yet there's still this saying, which I've been alluding to, is your book is your business card, because it still says to people, maybe not everything about you, it might just be one part of your business. But would you comment on, number one, the idea of a book being a business card? And number two, the other thing I find with people who are multi-passionate, who say, but then wait, does then that one book limit me to only that topic? Because wait, I actually have a couple topics I'm involved in.
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't limit you. In fact, again, a lot of it is more the credibility of being a published author versus the topic of the book, truly. And, we're very multifaceted people, right? We have different interests. We have our personal life. We have a professional life. I mean, my first book was personal development. My second book was productivity. My third and fourth and working on fourth book are about book writing. And my fifth book is more of a faith-based. So there's so many different components of just me. And so everybody has different topics in my opinion. And what was the other question? I'm sorry, the squirrel.
Oh gosh, yes. And then just the book being your business card.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, that is the title of my third book. Your book is your business card, because I've seen it firsthand that, and I said this already, but people will throw away a business card. They'll throw away a brochure. They won't throw away a book. And I don't know the phenomenon behind it, but we do value things. And if you think about it, do you have books on your bookshelf that you've never read before?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why didn't you throw them away if you never read them, right?
It's
We
just,
don't
it's
do
just, it's
that.
worse. It's worse than throwing away food. Like for me and our family, throwing away food, the way I was raised, is horrible. Throwing away
Yeah.
a book, it's almost like even like I have some books that like I'll give it away.
Hmm.
A few of them, gosh, if you look at my face, I go like this. Some of the books that I'd highlighted that I realized I couldn't give the library, but I was done with them. I was like, okay, at least make sure they go in the recycling. Like to me, it's still and literally, and this might sound weird to people. I would actually say a prayer and intention, like thank you for the like, because for me, that's somebody's work.
I know.
There's
Yeah.
something in there, and I think of something that I once, I've heard that concept of when you get on somebody's shelf, that of course, them even seeing the title, if they have read the book,
Hmm.
just seeing the title or the cover of the book, then is an anchor to say, like almost all the lessons are like, boom, just like that. Like, okay, it's a refresher of what you learned. So I think there's so much power in it. And I know I've experienced when I still do this because I still have some of my books that from my original print that it's like, definitely not gonna throw them away.
Yeah.
And I send them as thank you sometimes when I go to live events. I carry a bunch in my backpack. I give them to people, and then someone say, "Oh, wait,
Hmm.
wait, would you sign this for me?" And I remember the first time that wigged me out. Like, no, 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 you don't
Yeah.
understand. I'm not Zig. I'm not
Yep.
Wayne Dyer. I'm not Oprah. I sign your book. Like um, it was a very interesting experience, and yet, to your point, they weren't saying, "Oh, Wade, you're so much better than I am," which is like I wasn't looking. It's like no, just like that's cool that you did that, and actually it would
Hmm.
mean something if you signed. So
Yeah.
there's just so much to it. What have you found when people, well, first of all, if you don't mind sharing, what's your first signing story, or what was your experience when people started asking you to sign books? Because I know they have to have.
Oh, yeah. In fact, so my very first one, I'll never forget it. It was the day that my books arrived in, it was St. Patrick's Day 2009, and my first box of books arrived. I remember opening my box and kind of crying. And one of my friends in my neighborhood was, I think, coming by to pick up my son or something, and she saw him. She's like, "What is this?" And of course, I made light of it, like, "Oh well, no, it's just nothing I did there." And she asked for my autograph, and I remember being like, "No, no," because I didn't want to make it about me, but then that realization of, but I would be doing the exact same thing. And we do value that. I think that there's, more than anything, what holds people back from writing a book or putting themselves out there is really more the internal stuff than it is anything to do with how difficult it is or how much effort it is or how much money. It's more of like, it's just more some other things going on. But yeah, that was my first. And then, since then, definitely as a speaker, getting used to doing that. And one thing though, I will say about books and why I love doing live events and giving out books and signing books is, if you're out, if somebody hears you speak and they really resonate with your topic, I always joke but say, they want to take you home with them, meaning there's no way they're going to retain everything that you said. There's just no way. And so having a book is one of the ways that they can continue to learn from you. But when you sign it and do a personalized note or whatever, you do, it's just, it makes it, for the person who has that book now, they will never throw that away. And that's one of the reasons why I say it is your business card, because if you really want to stay top of mind, one of my books, the book that I wrote, Your Book is Your Business Card, it is actually my business card. It's a small book. It's a 4x6 book that I purposely wrote as my business card, and I give it away for free in exchange for someone else's business card. And I've had several calls from people who've decided to work with our publishing company, and I'll say, like, "Well, how did you hear about us?" And many times they'll say, "About 2 years ago, you were speaking somewhere, you handed out your book, your business card book, and I never threw it away, and it's been sitting here on my desk ever since." So there's some power that is associated with content that is bound. I can't describe it or explain it, but we just value books.
Yeah, I think definitely, at least in my experience over the last 10 to 12 years, there was all this talk when ebooks came out. And certainly ebooks are very useful and whatnot, but then of course that paper books were going to die.
Yeah.
And the more I look at it, it's gone almost like, okay, that almost like a wave, like, okay, we're over that, and we'll still
Hmm.
use them, but
Hmm.
there's still something about the paperback book. There's still something about a hardcover book still literally has more weight, but also feels a little more sometimes than a paperback. Like there's still, I think there's something that's maybe true to that, that it
Yeah.
doesn't go away. And one of the other things that I remember, gosh, that's so can be so powerful is this idea that most of us entrepreneurs want to reach a lot of people. We want to serve a lot of people. We certainly can't reach everybody. And yet there's also some of us that realize, the financial situation of the world, that, for example, you and I, just by virtue of the fact that we live in the United States,
Uh-huh.
and also do well, are in a very high economic situation compared to the rest of the world. Definitely,
Yes.
not even a
Yes.
question. And so the book or the electronic book is that way to say, yeah, I can still teach. I mean, I can still teach a workshop with my book. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I wish I could get back to, and I'm trying to, is to get back to writing a book before I learned how to write a book. So I first wrote a bunch of books, then I took courses on how to write a book, and then now I've got this editor in my head, as opposed to just writing a book, because then you do all this and you're like, okay, now I want to differentiate myself. Well, oh geez, I just followed a template. And certainly there's best practices. What do you tell people as far as how do you balance the author and the editor, the promoter? How do you advise people get to that best work without it becoming, I guess, too edited too quickly before they even get to their real truth?
Yeah, this is something, and maybe not everyone agrees, but for me, this is important. You don't write a book and then stop writing and go back and edit. I mean, because what happens is you're stopping your flow of creativity. I mean, we all do it, right? You write a paragraph and you go back and read it. Well, let's just say you think it's terrible, or oh gosh, and you spend all that energy fixing something, and you still don't have the rest of the story out on paper yet. No one can really, no one knows your stories, and no one knows your experiences the way you do. So you have to get it out of your head onto paper. You can always have an editor help you to make it sound good. But what I recommend is I call it a brain dump, but just get it out. I recommend even writing a book. You don't even have to write a book in order. Create silos. Like, what are these core concepts? And then just write about that. And then later you can move things around and cut and paste and all that. But write, just get it out on paper. And then once you think, okay, now that's everything I would want to say on that topic, then go back and read it and proof it and make sure it's the way you want it. But I just have seen it so many times where somebody writes and then they stop, and then either their confidence is shot or they're like, this is too hard, and they don't even have it all on paper yet. So edits come later. The first, there's 6 steps in the publishing process, and the first one is drafting, and then and that's just getting it on paper, and then it's proofing. It's not draft and proof at the same time. It's a process, and
Yeah, I can.
editing's after that.
Yeah, I can't think of how many times I've written it knowing that it's going to be in a 6:9 format with these margins. And I'd go back and wait, let me make sure that it fits at the end of a page, like all these OCD things coming out.
Yes,
And it's like, no,
that a
just write it.
designer does that you don't need to
Yes,
worry about.
exactly. And then I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I'm now having this analogy. It's kind of like if you think about, my wife and I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old right now. And I just starting to watch kids of that age date and this and that and the awkwardness and this and that. And it'd be like editing every single thing they do and like missing out. No, this is part of what's beautiful about it. It is a little strange. It's a little awkward. It's a little nervous. It's a little dorky looking. And yes, and you can always edit that later, because again, it's just a draft. But I think that's so much of, now people are trying to figure out how to write authentically off the cuff. Just write off the cuff. It's like, acting natural. It's like, no, just be natural. Just be
Yeah.
yourself. Um,
Think of it like, if you were to go have coffee with a friend, and they are having an issue or a problem, or they ask for advice, or they need to learn something from you, you're not going to edit yourself and make sure you say it so eloquently and just so perfectly. because that's all about you. No, when you are with a friend, you're thinking of how can I help them? What would I say? It just kind of comes out naturally. Your writing should be the same, because ultimately the book is not for you. It is for the reader. So sharing what you know, but of course an editor is going to make what you wrote better, right? So, but that editing can't come until after all of your thoughts are on paper. So just authentically get it out.
Wow, that's to me, that's huge right there what you just said. And it might be so simple, or maybe you've come to that, but yeah, that the book's not for you anyway. And it's so hard because we're like, yes, the book. Remember Wayne Dyer talking about, he said something once about how the sign of spiritual development was that you wouldn't worry about your image or fame or this. He's like, here, I've got all my, all my fixed picture all over all my books. I guess I'm messing this up. And he was just kind of joking, about, again, the ego and
Yeah.
all this baggage that comes in, instead of just simply saying, look, this person needs what I know about X to get
Mm-hmm.
from point A to point B. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can give that to them, chances are they're going to get there. And that's it. That's
Yeah.
the whole thing. It doesn't matter if they buy my next book or the next book, or gasp that they check it out at the library and don't pay me, or they get my e-copy, book copy from somebody else. Um, so I think, like you said, there's just so much that can come from this, if we can kind of almost let it go and let it take on
Mm-hmm.
its own life. Have you found that your stuff has taken you places you didn't intend?
Yes, and sometimes that's what makes it hard, because you end up sharing and being vulnerable, and then sometimes you're like, oh, do I really want to share that? I don't know. And I've had moments like that. In fact, this manuscript that I've been working on, I've edited so many times, because at first I put in a lot, and then I was like, okay, that might be too much, and then I thought, no, I need to be real, because that's what I tell people to do. And so um, yeah, I think it's just a process. And even people who know how to write books, it's because you're sharing yourself. But to your point, I think we do make it so much about ourselves, and it's hard not to, because you're pouring yourself onto paper. But at the end of the day, it's for the reader. Tom Ziegler once told me this, or told this story, and he said he doesn't remember where he heard it from, but something called the sin of the desert. And the sin of the desert would be, you're in the desert, you're with a group of people, and everyone is literally dying because of dehydration. They're dying. And you find the water, but you don't tell them. That would be a sin, right? That would be a sin. Nobody would do that. Of course not, right? But we do it all the time when we know something, or we've learned a lesson, or good or bad, we've gone through something, and we have some advice or lessons learned that we could share with someone else. If we don't tell them, well, that would be a sin. Meaning so, and again, I know that's an extreme example, but if you think of your story like that, I believe that there's a reason for everything, and not, even bad things happen. But if you can't change your story, but what if you could use your story and leverage your story in a way that could help someone else? I mean, why would you keep that to yourself if you knew it could inspire someone, educate someone, motivate someone?
Yeah, and that's the part I think then, at least for me, took me right back to, okay, now I feel it's almost like from the downside of the upside. Okay, well then now I've got to have so many numbers. And what have you found hurts people when they start worrying about the numbers, the vanity metrics, the sales, the downloads, the as opposed to simply understanding that this book, it might, like you did with your children with the first book, this might reach one or two people,
Yep.
and maybe that's enough. What would you advise somebody who's already now going the other way, and now going, the flip side of, oh gosh, well, now again, expectations, it has to be this, I have to sell a certain number of copies, I have to do all these different things.
I always ask people why they're writing the book, because there's no right or wrong reason, but the goal of why you're doing it really kind of determines how you go about it, and what effort you put into it. Maybe there is a reason why you want to be a New York Times bestseller, and there's nothing wrong with that. But is your book intended to be a legacy book? Is it just for friends and family? In that case, then a couple of people benefiting from your story is probably enough. But maybe you want to build a platform. Maybe you want to be a speaker or a coach or start a business. And so you do need to have some metrics, right? So you do have to get people to read it. So it is that fine line. I know for us personally, we don't work with a lot of folks if your only goal for writing a book is to sell book copies. I tend to not. I tend to tell them, then it's a big long uphill road, because just do the math. However much money you want to make in a year, divide that by a $20 book, or actually even worse, because it costs you money to produce it, right? So let's just say your profit is $10. How many books do you have to sell? And moving books is it's a full-time job if you want to do that. So I always say, well, what's your why? Because for me, I don't care if I sell books. I do want to sell books. It's more about the message than it is the book. And so I've realized, like for me, as speaking, I need to have books when I speak because, again, it's benefiting someone beyond my talk. And yes, do I make money on that and sell those books? Absolutely. Did I do a big campaign when I launched my first book and become a bestseller? Yeah, we did, because there was a reason behind it to, use that to get higher paying speaking engagements. So the why is really determining that more than anything. But if your only goal is to sell books, then I think you're going to be disappointed, because the average first time author sells about 500 books. If not, some less, some a lot less, some a lot more. It really just depends. So, but if you think of it as, this is the door opener, my book is the opportunity to get other revenue streams, then you will be wildly successful.
Yeah, I think that's such a big difference because I don't know what the numbers are now, but I don't remember the average profit per book being anything crazy. So even
No.
if it's, let's say it's $2 or $3 times 500, what, $1,500, as you and I know, you're going to spend so much more than that. And yet, what if you had 500 leads that really were interested in your business and you had some other service or product that helps them? I love something that Pat Flynn says about podcasting. People get caught up in their numbers and, do I have 200 downloads or 500 downloads or 1,000, or some people have 5,000 at the time. And he says, look, what would it cost you to get 200 people in a room at, let's say, a Courtyard Marriott? Well, a Courtyard Marriott wouldn't hold them at a bigger hotel. Like, you're talking, I don't know, a couple thousand, 5,000, whatever,
Yeah.
to host that. And yet you've got these people all around the world just dialed in and they're listening completely to you.
Yeah.
And what's that worth? So I think definitely that's so huge.
It is. And I just want to say one thing to it, because everything I just said is really intended for more of a first time author, right? There is a place and there are reasons why you do want to sell, like, further building your platform and, becoming a New York Times bestseller and all that. For a first time author, that's probably should not be your goal necessarily, because you don't have that platform yet. But for many other people, so again, it just goes back to, what is the goal? Where are you at? There's no right or wrong reason to write a book, but you need to know what you want to get out of it. And realistically, as a first-time author, think of it as your door opener more than anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For those y'all listening, you might not realize there's so much that she shared in here that's so huge because, and again, I think definitely that distinction you made right there, Michelle, is so huge. Yeah, there's certainly a point, like in any other business, where you want to scale and you want to leverage and it makes sense, but you have relationships in place. You've connected with people. You have people that you can comfortably ask where they're like, of course I'll promote your book because you had me on your podcast or you supported my book or whatever it might be, versus literally coming in cold and thinking you're going to do that. And then how, at least in my experience, the reason I never did it, because I just felt it just didn't flow. And it almost felt like I'm either asking for too much or it feels desperate. And so the in-between for me, and again, it maybe wasn't the greatest answer, but my answer was, okay, I'm not going to promote it. I'm just going to write it and put it on Amazon. And I had read enough that I knew that not everybody was going to be like, oh yes, we're going to come about your book, but it was like, okay, it's there. And so now if people look up, they can see that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow. There's so much to this. So I've got a few rapid fire questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So if you could give your entire target audience one skill, what would that skill be?
Confidence. Confidence in that you have everything within you right now to share your story, to write a book, to start a podcast. It really boils down more of what's going on in your head than anything else.
Awesome. Love that. What is the costliest business mistake you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, I've made so many. Investing in the wrong people for the wrong reasons. Meaning, I'm a big believer in having a coach. I'm a big believer in joining masterminds, but making sure that it's in alignment with what your ultimate goals are, because you can spend a lot of money on a lot of things. I say it all the time. There's no lack of things that you can do to promote yourself and promote your book, but getting really, really, really clear on what is going to work best for you. Just because it works for this person does not mean it's going to work for you. So figure out what you love to do. Do you love to speak? Get on stages. Do you love to coach? Become a coach. But you don't have to do all of it if you don't love it.
Awesome. Love that. Yeah, that's so huge. My biggest mistakes, the painful ones are the ones where you're like, oh wow, it was all there. Like the signs were there. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. Those are the ones that hurt. The other ones, I mean, you're still going to get some. Yeah, those are
Mhm.
painful. What's the best business decision you've ever made? And how did you execute it?
Best decision I ever made was really trusting myself more. And again, I am a big believer in coaching coaches, but listening to your own intuition and knowing what is really best for you. So those two questions are very similar. But when I several years ago made the decision of stop seeking out everybody else and what they think I should do and get clear in my head, talk to the guy upstairs and listen to what he says, and that's was the best thing I've ever done.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so hard to be unique if we keep following other people. It's a tough, very tough line. You mentioned productivity books. This is one of the questions I don't always ask, but what's your best tip to help people get more results in less time?
I love time blocking. Time blocking, I live and die by my calendar, and so setting out small bits of time to do something, and also blocking out your most creative hours. If you are most creative, most energy first thing in the morning, then do not schedule conference calls first thing in the morning. If that's when you're going to write your book, then block it out. If you're picking your kids up from school, block it out, because nobody is in charge of your calendar but you. And we all say we don't have enough time, but the reality is we choose what goes in our calendar. So choose what's most important and then block it out, and don't let anything creep in to those golden hours.
Awesome. Thank you. What's the one thing that most other entrepreneurs do that you find unnecessary?
Oh, wow. Oh goodness, that's a tough one. Wait, it's not that I find it unnecessary. I don't enjoy it as much, and I know I need to improve on it. Is social media. You know what? I love social media. I have a love hate with it though. You know what? Again, I'm probably missing out on a huge thing, but I don't love posting every single day and self promoting and all that all the time. That's my own thing. I got to get over that, but does it work? Yes and no. I would much rather do this. I'd much rather just be real and have a conversation with someone than posting just random things that may or may not be the exact equivalent of what's happening to me that day.
Yeah, social media is the one we get the most. Some people just say I just won't do it. Some people have said they've just dropped it or done certain things. So you're in alignment with a lot of people are finding. What's the first thing you believe every entrepreneur should delegate?
My first thing was accounting, because I'm not good at
Ooh,
that.
yes. Hmm.
My very, very, very first hire was somebody to do my books, because I just, that wasn't my strength. I didn't start a business because I knew how to run a business. I started a business because I had passion. I read the E-Myth and realized I did it all wrong. So that was my first thing that I outsourced. But so I would think to yourself, what do you hate to do? Don't second guess it. Just hire somebody, get a VA, do something, and get it off your plate.
Awesome. What have you dropped from your business or your life that's been most liberating for you to let go of?
That's a great question. I love to coach. I really do. But I realize that I love inspiring people to get their ideas and run with them. And so I have let go of ongoing long-term coaching, just because somebody put it this way one time: you're either the kind of person that lights a spark in someone, or the kind of person that keeps the candle burning. I am more the light the spark person. And so I let go of that need to feel like I had to do year-long coaching programs and all that, because I just realized what my gifts are and my passions are.
Wow,
Yeah.
thank you for that. I needed to hear that because I'm the first. I'm not the second. I know there's plenty of money in the second, and I'm still working with that, or at least I need to find my partner, my Garfunkel to the Simon or Simon to the Garfunkel or whatever. I need to find that because the two are important. But yes, oh wow, that's so huge. Thank you for that.
Not saying
Uh,
it's the right decision, but that is something that
yeah,
I
no,
like.
no, and in my case, it happens to line. Somebody might be saying the exact opposite right now, but yes, definitely. Wow. Okay, cool. And 2 more. What are you most excited about in your work right now?
Wow, I'm excited about a couple things. On the publishing side of the business, I'm really focused on scaling that. I've been in business for 10 years on the publishing side, actually closer to 11 now, and it's successful. But I really want to expand that, so I've been focusing a lot more on systems, processes, EOS, all of those things to help me grow that and build that. So that's one thing I'm excited about. But the other thing I'm so excited about is my next book. I mentioned it's more faith-based, but just it's nothing to do about writing a book, but it's all about, I just want to inspire people to find their story, shine their light, and get it out there. And journaling, helping people to see just find that inside of them that needs to just shine. And so that I'm super excited about launching this year.
That's awesome. And then what are you most excited about in your personal life right now?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am, as of a couple weeks ago, an empty nester. My oldest son just moved to New York City, which is absolutely crazy, but I'm so proud of him. And my youngest son is a freshman in college. So I'm most excited about just seeing them fly and visiting my son in New York City and traveling and doing some things like that. It's just a whole new, my husband and I have been married 24 years. And so we're kind of looking at each other like, okay, this is a whole new season, isn't it? And at first it's a little scary, but now we're like, this actually could be kind of good. This could be fun. And so I'm excited about that.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. You have shared so much. And for those of y'all listening, as somebody who's made a lot of mistakes that Michelle's talked about, and we're still looking to do some of the things you're doing, there's so much to this. So listen to it a couple times. Definitely. Now and we're going to put the links to all this in here. So there's two things. Where can people find out more about you? And then you shared with me that there's a gift you're going to share with the audience.
Yes. So either my main website is michelleprince.com. The publishing website is performancepublishinggroup.com. And we do free strategy calls. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, take advantage of that. But I do want to give away my latest book, The Power of Authority: How to Get More Revenue, Respect, and Results, by sharing your story. And it's really more intended for entrepreneurs, business owners, people that really want to use their book as a business card. And so we're going to give it away free, a digital copy. Just go to thepowerofauthority.com/free book, and you can instantly download it.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll have that link in the notes or the show notes, wherever you happen to be listening. Thank you so much. Wow, there is so much you've given today. And like I said, I just think this is so great. And hopefully, if you're listening, and whether you're an entrepreneur or not, and you're looking to get started, definitely check out Michelle's book and what she's doing, and reach out to her. Really just blown away with what you've shared today. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Wade, for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome. And as always, for those listening, I look forward to helping you impact more people and make more money in less time. Do what you do best so you can better enjoy your family, your friends, and your life. Thanks for listening.